it was a 6-day trek into the Himalayas, skating on wild ice, literally at 16,000 feet in the Himalayas.
Keep your breath up for that. I've been hiking at 10,000 and it's hard.
It was
Yeah.
intense. Like I think I managed like a minute before like being like, okay, I have to stop.
Yeah.
But it was so cool. And like that was like late in the season and had been like snow packed. So like we had to like we literally just like the team
Mhm.
um dug out like ice like two like ice rink sized surfaces. It's like one of the coolest things that figure skating has ever allowed me to do. Like ever since I went to Nepal, I'd been wanting to do it more and more.
Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Silicon Valley Ice Sports Podcast. We're thrilled to have on Jeremy Abbott. Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm so excited to be a part of the podcast. I My name's Jeremy Abbott, as you just said. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a 4-time U.S. champion, 2-time Olympian, and Olympic team bronze medalist. And I coach and choreograph in the Bay Area.
Pretty much amazing background. So really awesome. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got into skating?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Aspen, Colorado, and from a very it's small mountain town, very winter sports heavy. And as soon as I could walk, my parents took me out skiing, took me skating. They had me signed up in summer for all kinds of sports, tennis, golf, baseball, gymnastics, swimming, diving. I
Damn it.
really, yeah, I did a lot of different sports as a child, but skating just was my thing. I was fine missing school. I was fine missing other sports. Missing skating was like the world was ending. So it just like it, there was something about skating that just was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I've always loved it since I first stepped on the ice. And I grew up like doing learn to skate like most kids do. And when I was about 4 or 5, I got the chance to see 1980 Olympic champion Robin Cousins perform. And it was like in that moment, like I saw like the cool stuff that he did on the ice and the way that the audience was reacting to him and like how excited they all were. And I like immediately turned to my mom and I was like, okay, I want private lessons. Like I want to do that.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was kind of that was the beginning of the end.
The spark that lit the whole thing.
Yeah.
I love it. That is so cool. So Colorado, and then where tell us a little bit about I guess a little bit of your Olympic journey and how that all materialized. Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up skating 3 days a week because we had one ice surface and it was shared with hockey and public and everything else. And our skating club like didn't have a ton of money, so we had 3 days, and I made the most of it. And then when I was 13, I started doing ice dance with a partner in Colorado Springs, and so every weekend my mom would drive me to Colorado Springs and I would skate there. And then when I was, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I would think I was actually 11 when that happened. I was 11 when she started driving me every weekend. And then when I was 14, I moved to Colorado Springs and I lived with a family for a year. And then my family eventually moved from Aspen to Colorado Springs the next year. And yeah, I had begged like since I was like 10 years old to like go to a training facility. Like at the time, Simsbury, Connecticut was a really big place, and I wanted to either go there or Colorado Springs, or actually Detroit was really big at the time, which is funny because I ended up moving to Detroit later.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Um, but I had asked my parents, and they're like, "No, we're not moving anywhere. You're not going anywhere." And my coach at the time, when I was 14, just told my parents like, "Your son has talent, and I think he's gone as far as I can take him. And if you want him to continue, like, I think you need to move somewhere." And I'm really grateful for that because not a lot of coaches would do that. And because of that, then my parents were like, okay, we'll let you go for the summer for a trial. And then it just kind of kept progressing.
Wow, that's wild. And you went from there to Detroit, or what was the next
So I
jump?
went from Aspen to Colorado Springs, and I was in Colorado Springs for 10 years.
Ah,
And I
okay.
was there through my first senior national title. And after that season, I moved to Detroit, and
Hmm.
I was in Detroit for 11 years, but I was only competing for 5 of those. So my last 5 competitive years were in Detroit, and then I stayed there as I started doing choreography and shows and everything else before I moved here.
That's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, now you live in the Bay Area. I see you all over, but I think the Bay Area is your hub. So
Yes.
what kind of brought you here?
um, it's um,
If you don't mind sharing.
no, I don't. I actually love this story. The short answer is Alysa Liu.
Oh,
Um, the
yeah.
long answer is in 2019, I was really, I was super busy. I did like 3 different tours and I did a bunch of different shows and I was doing a lot of choreography and seminars and so I think I was in Detroit for a total of 2 weeks, like out of the whole year. Like that was the whole time I was home was a total of 2 weeks. And I had kind of been wanting to make a move anyway. And so I just packed up all my stuff, put it in storage, and was like, I'll figure it out later. And then, of course, February 2020, March
Gosh,
2020,
yeah,
pandemic
yeah,
happened,
pandemic. Ugh.
and I didn't have a home, and all my
Mhm.
stuff was in storage.
Oh no.
So I
Yeah.
moved in with Yuka Sato, who was my coach in Detroit,
Oh wow.
and I lived with her for 3 months. Um, and then from there, this was like late. This would have been like late June at this point. My sister had called me, and she lives in a small town in Idaho. And at that point, their rink was still open. They hadn't had any COVID cases.
Right.
And she was like, if
Yeah.
you need to work, come out here. So I had some choreography that I needed to do. So I drove out to Idaho. I did a
Wow.
road trip from Michigan to Idaho. I had a client meet me in Idaho. We worked for 2 weeks. It was lovely because it was basically private ice, and we could be like in a bubble. It was like just my sister's house and the rink, and that was really it. And then from there, I had nothing to do and nowhere to go, and we were supposed to be socially distant. So I was like, I think camping is the perfect activity.
Awesome. I'm a
I
big
could,
camper, so that's
oh,
cool.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
I do Yosemite a couple times a year. So
I
yeah.
love it. Yeah, I didn't get to go to Yosemite at the time, but that is definitely high on the list. Um,
I've pro tips for after on how to book it.
yeah,
But
please.
yeah, I'll drop.
Because I know it fills up super quick.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So you started going camping then. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I just kind of went from Idaho to Oregon to
Beautiful.
Washington and then into Southern California. I drove all the way down, and like once I got into Southern California, one of my friends, and this is like late July, early August at this point.
Oh, so
So
right
I've
as
been
the
on
fires were probably starting, or
just before that.
ooh, okay.
So I had been on the road for a few weeks at this point. So then I had a friend join me, and we went up towards Calaveras, like big trees, and went camping there. And then at that point, like it's into August, and like we came into the city, into San Francisco,
Hmm.
and met up with a mutual friend that we had in San Francisco. By the time I got to San Francisco, Yerba Buena was open again.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
and so I went in to skate, and I ran into Massimo Scali, who had just started working with Alysa
Hmm.
a few months prior. And from there, like Massimo and Alyssa's dad asked if I would give her a lesson. So I gave her
Oh,
one lesson, and then one became, would you like to give her a couple lessons? And I
oh.
was like, cool. So I gave her a couple lessons. And then it was like, how would you like to move here and be part of her coaching team? And I was like,
Wow. Yeah.
awesome. Okay. So that's how I ended up moving here.
Wow. Yeah, you're like, let's go. That's great. Huh.
Yeah, totally
Huh.
unexpected. Like I literally just came in to skate, and then I was planning on continuing my camping trip, and it was like, now here I am.
Yeah, that's so neat. Because I remember I met you, I think, for the very first time in 2017, I think it was 2016,
I
somewhere
think
around
so.
there.
Yeah.
And I didn't think you lived here from my
Nope.
memory. So
Yeah,
that's
I
wow.
was living in Detroit at that time.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's so cool. And then there's the story of Alyssa Liu coming in and out of skating as well. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, she has quite a
Wow.
story.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can share maybe, that's shareable, I guess, as far as coaching, but with her, but it's got to be just so amazing her rise, especially, having come back. Um,
Yeah, no, I'm so happy for her. And I'm really proud that like, she's doing it on her terms, like really taking um charge and ownership of her skating, and she wanted to do it like as an adult, like I think it's different when you're a kid, and like sometimes like our goals aren't always our own when we're young. And I love seeing that like she was just like, I want to do this for me, like no, with no like, I don't believe she had any expectation of any sort of outcome. She just wanted to come back and compete and try to do it on her own terms, and then just like, all right, world champion, like no big deal.
you just drop that one on.
Yeah,
No
so
big.
I'm super happy for her, and she's like a genuinely lovely human being. And so like, I don't know, I always want to see good people succeed, so I'm really happy for her.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's been really neat just as a Bay Area local to see it, and just cheering her on as she goes and represents. I mean, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow. Well, I guess pivoting a little bit. So you talked a little bit about ice time and, having initially kind of earlier skating and only having 3 days a week. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the criticality of being on the ice? And is that something that is inherently, required, I guess, to be a successful Olympian, would you say?
I mean, yes, like, the more sports specific practice you can do, like the better. And like when you're learning skills, it requires lots of repetition. Having said that, like I I don't think that it's like you don't need to be on the ice all day long for hours and hours and hours on end. My family, even though I grew up in Aspen, like we were not wealthy, just like middle class. Skating is very expensive. And so when I moved to Colorado Springs, like my parents couldn't afford to have me skating 4 hours a day and taking lessons every single day, let alone every single session. So I was skating three maximum, 45-minute sessions a day, 5 days a week, and then I would skate one 45-minute session on Saturdays. And at first, like when I was 14, I was taking three 20-minute lessons a week, skating like an hour and a half to 2 hours and 15 minutes total. But I was like, I think it's more about the internal drive than it is about anything else, because like I had to learn how to be efficient with my time, and I had to learn how to maximize the time that I had. And because of that, like there was really no wasted time in my practice. And like I even like I'm a huge proponent of play. I think play is super important. And so like I would practice my skills, I would do my run throughs, I would do everything that was on my sheet, and I would have time to play with new skills, play with new transitions. And this was even before transitions were a thing. But it was like playing with different ways to get in and out of jumps, and different ways to get in and out of spins, and playing with spin positions, and playing with steps, and playing with like slides, and all of these stuff that are now actually required. But these things were not required. It was just, let's see what we can do, right? And so like, I don't know, I managed to like do my work and learn and play, and all in the span of like an hour and a half to 2 hours and 15 minutes a day, with only 20 minutes of guidance, a total of an hour of guidance in the week. And then like eventually as I progressed, like I started to have a 20-minute lesson every day. And then the most that once I moved to Michigan, like I had Yuka and Jason, and I would have them like one of each on each session, but it wouldn't be for the full session. And so like, I'm still not in lessons all day long, but kind of between That was like my like by the time I was going to the Olympics, but like between like intermediate and going to the Olympics, like the most lessons I had per week would be, see if that was like 2.5 hours of lessons
Wow.
total. And so I think, you know, it's not necessarily about doing hours and hours and hours of ice time and doing hours and hours and hours of lessons. It's about like, what's the intention behind the practice? What are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? And like, if you really, as an athlete, if you really want to succeed, you're going to find a way. I would listen in on other kids' lessons. I would ask questions when it wasn't my lesson. I would watch lots of videos. I would visualize. Like I did, I there are still people that outworked me for sure, and people that wanted it more than I did for sure. But like that wasn't right until the end. Like I definitely I definitely wanted it real bad. And I did like everything that I could think of to do to try to get better and improve and be the best that I could be.
That's so
And
interesting.
that was with limited time.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting how, I mean, it sounds like you were very efficient with how you used kind of time and resources that were made available to you. A couple years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with an Olympic athletic psychologist, and she kind of talked about some of the preparations that are needed to, go to the Olympics and some of the habits that, elite athletes have, and kind of a lot of what you just talked about as far as like the visualization, the power of visualization. And I have some recollection of her talking about how when studying the brain, she could actually see the same parts of the brain light up as someone's visualizing doing something as when they're practicing. And so that's so interesting to me that it seems like you stumbled upon that in an incredible way. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
really
to
cool.
be fair, like I did not stumble upon that. I had
Or maybe
really
you had
good.
coaches who were talking you through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
just, whatever my coach told me to do, I just listened. I was like, because I wanted, I didn't want to have a desk job and I didn't want to go to college and I really just wanted to skate. So I was like, I'm going to figure this out. So when my coach said to do something, I just, like, of course, as a teenager, you're going to, like, there's going to be some push and pull, but like, if I was told to visualize, I would visualize. If I was told to do my off ice warm up, I did my off ice warm up. Like, I really, as I'm saying this, it's like I'm making it sound like I just like did this naturally. Like, no, I definitely had to be like pushed into some of these habits, and I had to kind of more than forcefully like be introduced to some of these things. But once I decided that I was like, okay, I really actually want to be good. I was like, I listened to everything, and like I had really good mentors and I had really smart people around me, and I just was like give me as much information as
Jane.
you can, and like
Yeah.
I really tried to take it all in and make as much sense of it as I could for myself. And yeah.
And you did incredibly. So
Yeah.
you definitely made it
But
work.
I just wanted, like, for anybody who's listening, like I was a very normal teenager. Like I definitely pushed boundaries, I definitely pushed buttons, I definitely fought back. Like I was not like the perfect student, but
That's a
I
good
also
point.
very much like was like I want to be I want to be the leader. I want to, if my peers, if my group of peers have been told to do something, like I'm going to be the one to do it.
That's awesome. That drive, I think, is like very, very clear just in kind of how you're talking about it, and obviously in your accomplishments as well. So that's super cool. But I love too your point about, you're also human. I just spoke with I think you know her, the founder of Road to Gold, and she talked a lot about how Road to Gold does a lot of sort of like grounding of sort of elite athletes with with kind of your like a variety of other athletes. And so it's really neat to hear that as well. Because I
Yeah.
think there's sort of this perception that if you've won the Olympics, and rightfully so, there are certain things that are quite unique and incredible about someone, but they're also still human. So I think
Yeah.
that's important to kind of keep in mind. Um, Super cool. So so we talked about, ice time, and then, kind of your experience living in different places. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen, I guess, in the Bay Area? I mean, as far as I hear from a lot of skaters that they really struggle to find ice time. Do you have any kind of stories or experience with that you can speak to?
Specifically in the Bay Area.
So yeah, specific to the Bay Area. Yeah.
Um, it's hard for like elite skaters in the area because the figure skating time is limited, and because it's so limited, it's not separated by level. So you can have a session that's like a full session with beginner children and adults up to like 70 years old, and trying to do a long program with triple jumps and triple triples and sometimes quads is very,
Wow.
very challenging because,
Yeah.
like, they skate very fast, they jump very high. It can
Mhm.
get very scary for people that aren't like used to that, and it can
Mhm.
feel a little like dangerous. And so like from the standpoint of like elite skating, I think it's very, very difficult in terms of just skating. One of my favorite parts about like teaching in the Bay Area is how welcoming it is. Everyone is welcome to skate, and like there's no really like hierarchy. It's not like, oh well, this is you're not good enough to skate here, or you're not good enough to skate on this session. And so while it does present some challenges in progression, it definitely presents a very lovely community of skating where everyone really knows everyone, and it's very like whenever new people come, like people are very welcoming, and it's very like friendly, and it's very lovely, and I really do enjoy that about the area and about like the rinks in particular. So it's kind of a catch-22 a bit, where there is great community here because of the lack of time. Everyone has to skate together, and it creates a great community, but it definitely does create challenges in like the competitive track with finding like competitive ice time where you can just really focus on simply training. I guess it just depends on what you're trying to get out of the sport.
That's fair.
Um,
No, I think that's a really good point, and that is something growing. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I learned to skate at Belmont Iceland, and poked around at some other rinks as well. And that was something that I saw pretty consistently, was that it's such a tight-knit community, and people are just incredibly warm here. So even sort of hearing the antithesis of kind of what you're saying, is that it's not like that elsewhere, is like shocking a little bit, but it's really interesting, and that's very cool though that we have that sort of specialty here. So that is neat. Um,
yeah, oh, for sure.
yeah. So you've skated, globally, right? And so that brings a lot of probably really cool experiences skating around the world. Particular to the Silicon Valley Ice Skating Association. We care a lot about kind of the building of rinks and keeping skating alive here. Are there any kind of interesting like skating layouts that you've seen, or like facilities that maybe worldwide, in the Bay Area we may not have heard of, or anything like that you can share about?
I think some of like the interesting ones are like getting rinks not necessarily in high rises, but like on like not on ground floors of buildings. I've been on rinks on like the seventh floor of a building. And when you're in cities and condensed areas, like the only way to build is up, and rinks take up a lot of space, and like space is such a premium in especially in this area.
Yeah.
um, and so I think those like mixed use spaces are like a great way to kind of like marry the two, where it's like, okay, you can have the space of a rink while without taking away like a full city block of other
Yeah.
space. um, I've also seen um, rinks being put up in not in the US, like I was just in Japan and skated a rink that was like in a very industrial area, like all that was around, because there's space. So it's
Yeah.
like there's cranes and there's like warehouses, but like nothing much else. And so maybe that's like the most convenient to get to, but like, okay, well, there's space and the land is going to be cheaper because it's not like really inhabitable. And I don't know, people definitely get creative. Always love a good outdoor rink.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any favorites? Not to put you on the spot too much, but
I mean, My favorite is always going to be Wild Ice. So in terms of like man-made outdoor rinks,
Wild
I
Ice
don't
also
know that I
counts if you have any favorite locations for that. I was gonna just jump into that. So
yeah, I was like, I don't know that
yeah.
I have a personal favorite like man-made outdoor look. Oh, I lied. Sun Valley.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, sorry.
Yeah.
That was hello. Sun Valley is iconic, and skating at that rink outdoors is like always such a treasure. I love skating there.
It's beautiful. One day I hope to make it out there. I've seen just incredible videos, so
Oh yes, you have
I
to.
gotta do it.
It's like I mean the area is stunning, but like I don't know, there's just something really special about the rink, and like it's so deeply rooted in the history of skating as well. It just feels special.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I guess jumping ahead to the wild ice, I recently saw that you had some really cool skating posts about wild ice, and I personally just started watching. I think I think her name's pronounced Michaela Carrot on YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, can you tell us about sort of your inspiration with wild ice? Did that have anything to do with it, or just where did that come from?
Um, no, sorry, Michaela. uh, It's, I mean, something that like I got to do as a kid once. We had like one of my friends' families ran a nature preserve, and there was like a pond that was in the preserve, and it froze one winter, and so like we got to skate on it. And like I always thought like the idea of skating outdoors like always was exciting. And I did like some lake hockey when I was in Michigan, but not very much because I was competing, and you know, we have to make sure that we stay safe and healthy and don't do anything stupid to jeopardize the season. And so like it was very like minimal, but I actually there's a woman whose name is Laura Kotlaski, and she also posts a lot on Instagram and YouTube. But right before the pandemic, actually, she invited us to Nepal. Um, so it was like a 6 day trek into the Himalayas, and skating on wild ice, literally at 16,000 feet in the Himalayas.
Wow. How
And
did
that
you keep
was
your breath up for that? I've been hiking at 10,000 and it's hard.
it was
Yeah.
intense. Like I think I managed like a minute before like being like, okay, I have to stop.
Oof.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was so cool. Um, and like that was like late in the season, and it had been like snow packed. So like we had to like we literally just like well we the team
Mhm.
um dug out like ice like two like ice rink sized surfaces. So when you get the ice like earlier in the season, before like the snow gets onto it, like you can skate forever and ever and ever. It's like endless. So even though like this was wild ice, it was still like rink size, so it still felt like a little like in a way artificial, even
Intimidating.
though it was like one of the
Yeah.
coolest things I've ever done in my life by
Wow.
far. It's like one of the coolest things that figure skating has ever allowed me to do.
Yeah.
um it still was like, okay, I'm skating on a rink because it was rink size.
Yeah.
um and ever since then, like, well, then we were in lockdown, and then I moved here, and I was like blah 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 blah, but I had been wanting to do that for like ever since I went to Nepal. I'd been wanting to do it more and more and more. And Laura had invited me to like come to Colorado, or even like Northern California, like we're kind of close to where we are. But every time was like I was on a weekend that I was gone or had something to do, and so it like never worked out. And so this past winter, I went to visit my sister in Idaho,
Hmm.
and they uh, hadn't like they had gotten early snow, but then it hadn't snowed for a really long time. Um, and I was like, well, maybe because you haven't gotten a lot of snow, like it had been really really cold. I was like, maybe I can skate. Maybe I can skate. And so like they live on Big Payette Lake, but then there's Little Payette Lake, and usually people skate on Little Payette Lake. So I drove out there to check it out, and it was fully snow packed, like not a chance. Nobody had dug anything out. Like it was like feet of snow, and it was just like, okay, this is unskateable. So I was like, okay, forget it. So my sister was like, well, you should drive to like the far end of Big Payette Lake and see like, because that like usually that side freezes. Like the side that's closer to town is doesn't usually freeze.
Hmm.
So maybe check that out. So I tried driving to the end, but the road was closed. Like I was like
Oh.
less than a mile from like where I was supposed to be, but the road closed, so I had to turn back around. And I was driving back into town, and I saw two people on the ice, and I was like,
Ooh.
"Wait a minute!" So like I called my sister, and I was like, "They're skating on Big Payette Lake," and so we went out the next day, and now like I don't recommend that people just like go skate on wild ice because it's really dangerous. Like if the
Yeah.
ice breaks and you don't have any safety gear and you don't have people with you, like that's how you die.
Yeah.
Like it's no joke. And I have much more to learn about wildlife safety.
There's some number of inches deep that it needs to be. Like I know I've looked it up for skating in Tahoe because I've heard of some fatalities that way.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to, but it is incredibly dangerous. So
Yeah, if
yeah.
it's like 2 inches, you can drive a car on it.
Well, there you go.
So it's like pretty safe. So like I learned, if you like you can take ice screws like for like ice climbing and like you can screw it into the ice to see how thick it is. Another one is like a throw rope, definitely life vests, all of these things, and having people with you. But there's a lot more to safety than just that. So like anybody who's maybe interested, look up Laura Kotlowski. She has YouTube videos and Instagram videos, and I'm sure she would be happy to answer anybody's questions. And I think she even like has a course on wild ice safety. And if you're gonna skate outdoors, absolutely know what you're doing before you do it. Do not just throw on skates and get on a lake.
We'll have to have you back on just to talk about wild ice, I think. But we have about a minute left. So is there
Oh,
anything? I know we're going by so quick. We're gonna have to do, I think, a follow-up.
I can
Yeah.
yap and yap and yap.
No, you're great. Is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know about skating, access to ice, or any shout outs you've got?
um, I mean, let's keep listening to the podcast, keep supporting the podcast, support your local rinks. Everyone go out and figure skate because the more people that figure skate, the more figure skating ice time we can have, and the more everyone can enjoy it. And yeah, the Bay Area is such a special and wonderful place.